Alright guys, welcome, and in this episode we are going to do a complete and full teardown of the 6th gen Camaro steering wheel. So, before we begin, the one thing I do want to note for you guys is that this is a heated steering wheel, so you're going to see some components on here that have to do with the heating element. These will most notably probably be absent on non-heating heated steering wheel. So the first one is that obviously there's the heated steering wheel button. For those cars that don't have the heating element, this is the switch you most likely have, which has the button up here as on and off for your cruise control, and then the cancel button in the center. And then what you'll probably also see is this wire sticking out down here has to do with the heating element, and you may see a few others. So without further ado, let's just get into it. So what I like to do is the first one I take out is this piece on the bottom here. Now it's held in just by some pressure clips. So usually what you need to do is just kind of get underneath this and pry it up. I have a pry tool here, although it's not the one I usually use, so it may not work. So you just stick it in the bottom, and then I'm pushing up. Now, I don't necessarily care that much if I damage this because it's not the final one, but here are your clips. And if you ever need to replace this, I'll get the part number for you guys at some point into a document, but take a look there. So we'll set that aside. The next thing is this is all kind of one big piece here. It all comes out as one piece. Now, you don't want to just grab it and rip it out because this and this are still plugged into the harness. Can you unplug it? Kind of, but the plugs, if I hold this to the side, you'll see the plugs are way under there. So it's not that easy to get out until you have access from the bottom. So what I like to do is I like to grab it here, and I'm going to lift it up. And see, it will pop up just a bit. You can kind of see that nub clip there, and then I like to just kind of work my way around the outside. Again, being very mindful and careful that you don't want it to snap too hard because your plugs are still plugged in. Okay, so now this whole piece is loose. Now I have better access to my plugs. Now the plugs, the way they're oriented, you can kind of see it here. The tab is on this, the inner part of the steering wheel. So like this side, not this side. So you're gonna pull the tab this way from this side. So what I'm gonna try to do here is reach underneath and lift that tab up and then pull it out. Okay, so here's a better view. So when it's like this, the tab is on the bottom here, you lift it up and you pull it out. So we're gonna do the same on this side. So we lift that up and pull it out, and here's our front bezel with our switches. We'll set that to the side. All right, so now we have this. We want to remove next our two, I call them our auxiliary switches here. It takes a Torx, I believe it's a Torx 20. There's two Torx 20 on each of these, so unscrew that, set it to the side. Now, same thing, even though you unscrewed these, there's going to be plugs into this. So these plugs are a lot smaller, a lot more fragile. So I would say be careful when you take these off. You'll notice here is our plug. You just have to push the little tab. The tab is tiny. It's literally that, what looks like an E there. It's the very middle leg of the E. So you just have to push that down and pull it out. Okay? So we'll set that to the side. Same thing on this side. You can do the wire first, and then you grab your Torx 20. Okay, now our two little things are out. Okay, next we want to take out our paddle shifters. So these, actually the plugs are on the top here, so you can remove them without actually removing the shifter first. You just need to have a little bit of a little something to pry the switch back, because it's very hard to fit your finger in there. There's like a little nub. So what I do is I just use this little pick tool and they come right out. So you just need something to pull it. What you'll notice, just so that you're not concerned or don't, this one only has 2 wires on this side. This one has 3. That has to do with the design of the actual circuit diagram. Again, this is a Torx 20, and this is going to be one bolt holding on each. So once we take that out, set it to the side. Now this is it's like actually sort of, I don't want to say it's magnetic, but it'll feel like it's stuck. You got to give it a little strength to pull it out. This right here kind of hooks and slips in. So when you pull it out, you're going to pull it out like this. So remember, it's here. You're going to grab this part and pull, almost like you're opening a door. Pull it out like that. Same thing on this side. Now, just in case you get concerned, you shouldn't mix up the screws, bolts. I guess they're screws. These have this sort of flanged head on the top for the paddle shifters. These do not. The ones that hold in these. So we're going to grab this, we're going to bend it out, and out it comes. Now, at this point, you've deconstructed most of it. If you really want, I'm not going to pull it out, but your harness pretty much will come out at this point. The only thing you would have to do is notice your horn plug here pushes down inside. So this little clip for the horn is kind of pressure. It's pushed inside here and it's holding itself in. You have to kind of get something underneath it and pry it out if you really wanted to get this harness out. I'm not going to go through all of that because I really don't need that to come out. But that kind of would be the last leg of your harness if you don't have the heating element. However, if you do have the heating element, notice I have this one extra wire that comes down and goes this way. Okay? This is important because you wonder, where does this go? We got to flip the steering wheel over. And you see that there's this plastic housing here. Okay? What we need to do is you grip that and you're going to pull it up. Okay? Sometimes I guess using a pry tool will help. Underneath here, this is your heating element, your heated steering wheel module, okay? Most of these will be covered in electrical tape. I've already undone them. I've already cleaned that up, but this slides right out. I'll set that to the side. And this, if you ever need to replace the module on your heated steering wheel, this is it. So again, I'll try to add the part number in a bit later, just so we have it. You know what? While I'm here, we just take a picture of it, and we have it. Okay, so now these plugs are not that easy to navigate and get out, but there's little tabs here. You know, if you just lift the tab and you pull the opposing plug out. Mine might be a little bit easier than yours, only because I've already come in here and undone these. But long story short, again, if you need to replace your heated steering wheel control module, this is where you'd come in and you would extract your old one and put your new one in. These pick tools are always kind of my favorite because they allow you to get inside some of these things rather easily. Okay, so this is what how your control module would come out. Okay, so now that we have that out, if you really needed to, as I said before, you would basically just pull your harness. You have one wire. This wire is going to stay. This actually has 4 wires in it. It's got your heating element and your thermistor that are actually in the steering wheel itself. Okay, so again, at this point, if you really wanted to, you could pull the harness out. I'm not going to do this because at this point, it's, it's not something I need to do for this, for what I'm working on. But for you, that's how you get there. So let's take that off to the side. Now let's talk about all of our switches. Okay, so next on the list here is going to be our, let's take a look at our paddle shifters. So how do the paddle shifters work? Obviously, they're buttons, but you wonder, how do you get inside these? Notice there's this little pin here. That pin has to come out. Well, there's no screw and you can't push it out from this side. What you do is over here, you can push it out. Okay, so what I have done is, now it's hard for you to see, and it's a little blurry, but holding it right there, you can actually see the top end of the pin there, right? You need to get behind that and push it down and out. So I'm using my 90-degree pick. You could probably even use a flathead screwdriver, but I'm going to try to put that on top of the pin and push it a little. And notice the pin came out on the bottom. Now you're probably not going to be able to grab this with your, you may be able to grab it with your finger and pull it, but out it goes, and here comes off your shifter. So here is your tiny little switch that controls your circuit. Now at this point, the only way to get this out, and I've done this, I'm not going to do it on camera, is these 3 pins on the top, you have to desolder them. You have to desolder them because there's no way to get that plus these 3 pins to come out in one shot, because they're kind of angled, right? You can tell they don't just go straight through, and they're not even 90 degree, they're off to an angle. And even if you pull these clips back, which hold this in, which you will have to pull back if you're going to pull that out, that is what you're going to have to do. So I'll set that aside. Actually, you know what? I'll just put it back together so you guys can see if this comes out, if the spring comes out, if all of these pieces fall out. What you need to do is you take your spring, you slide it back into this little slot over here. You'll be able to see it. There's kind of like a barrel shape in there. That's where your spring goes. You're going to take this piece, you're going to slide it back in there, and the spring should go inside of that. Make sure you get the orientation of this right. It may not go in both ways, but I believe that's the side that goes up. We'll find out shortly if it doesn't work. But then you're going to hold it like this, and you're going to kind of hook over it because you want that white piece to fit inside that groove. So let's try to do that right now. Okay, so now that's in. And now when I press it, okay, it's got that little feel to it. So I'm going to take my pin. When you look at your pin, now remember, this pin is going to have a little bit of grease on it. So, you don't want to lose all that grease. So don't wipe it, don't clean it unless you're going to put grease on it. But if you look really close to the head of this, there's like a little bit of threading on this side. That's the side that is the last part to go in. So I'm going to push this down. I'm going to start pushing my pin in. Okay. And I want to push it all the way in until it's pretty much inside. Yeah, it doesn't have to be, but again, that's kind of where it was. And now my paddle is back together. So that's, if you're ever going to replace your paddles, sometimes they have aftermarket ones, that's how you're going to go about doing that. Okay, so we're going to set that aside. I'm not going to do the right one because I just showed you guys that, so that's clear. Now let's take a look at these. Once again, I'm only going to do one of these instead of 2. The only thing to call out, just in case you're not aware, is the one with the favorites has 4. It's a 4-pin connector, and the one that has the volume is a 5-pin connector. All right, so we'll set that to the side for now. And then we're going to take our, I believe it's a T7. Yeah, so this is T7. T10 is not going to work. It's going to be too big. So we're going to turn these two screws. There's three. And we're going to drop that there. And then here's what's going to happen. You're going to open it up, and you're going to have two things. So you have this plastic piece, right, which is, you first have this shield here. And this shield, the way I'll just describe it to you simply put, is you have a short end on the top and a long end on the bottom. Short, long, in case you forget which way it's supposed to be oriented. But let's take that out. Your two buttons can come out like that. And now this shell is just this. Next up is your switches. Now, the trick with this is you're not going to be able to get this rubber off unless you get these two plastic pieces out. Okay? These two plastic pieces are actually your sort of buttons here. But they are connected in from the other side. So, I actually think this might come off of the board. No, it doesn't. They're actually connected to this plastic shell on the back. So there's a couple different options for pulling these out, but you can usually just grip them and pull them up as hard as you can, and they'll come out. Now, the one thing you want to note, I'm going to try to show this, is there is a little spike on one side that has to go in the correct orientation. So just take note of where that spike is. I'm going to put it face up over here. And when I pull this one out, I'm going to try to see which side was that spike on. Okay, the spike was facing this way. So when I put these in, the spike has to go back in facing this way. All right, so I'm going to set that aside. I'll pull my rubber off, set that here. And at this point, here's my circuit board. So now I've completely deconstructed the little favorite switch and what would be the volume switch. Okay, so let's reverse that and let's put it back together. Remember, spike side up. Okay. Seven millimeter. Now I always want to test it. Make sure they're nice and stiff. Make sure they click. Perfect. So we'll set that to the side. We're not going to do the volume because, guys, honestly, it's the same thing. So we'll set that to the side here. Now we'll work on the last piece here. So we want to get these off. If you flip this over, it's going to look like these can come right off with these little clips. You may have better luck than I do, but what I found is that it seems like this plug spot blocks this from coming up and out. So what I typically do is I unscrew these, I take the cap off, and then that gives me the access. So let's do that. Once again, 7 millimeter screws. All right, so now we lift this plastic piece off. We can set that to the side here. Now you have your circuit board. We're going to take that out. We're going to set that right here. We're going to take this off. We're going to set this right here. Now within here, each one of the buttons has a little piece of plastic that's going to pop out. Here's one, here's another, and there's a bunch around here. So I'm going to turn this over. I'm going to catch them all in my hand. They are not interchangeable, so don't worry about mixing them up. You'll see when you go to put it together, you can't get them out. So now we want to get this off. This is easy. There's this inner silver clip and this inner silver clip. You're just going to push that with your thumb, push it down, and off it comes. All right, so let's set that over there. Let's come over here and let's do the same thing on this side. Now, don't push down because this is going to flex. Kind of hold it while you do it. Okay, plastic off, rubber here, sorry, circuit here, rubber here. We're going to grab all of our little clips. I believe there's only 3 on this side, so we got those there. Then we're going to push on our plastic nubs. Okay, and there's our switches. So we'll take our shell. We're going to put our shell over here. Now, we are down to this. Okay, what do we want to do? We want to take this silver bezel off of the rest of this body. So that's what we're going to do right now. So in order to do that, this is a little tough. You have these little clips, which are very, very stiff. There's 4 of them. There's one here, there's one back here, there's one here, and one here. This one is typically the easiest, the flat one, because it's the largest. Again, I'll use my 90-degree pick, and I'll do what I can to get behind it and kind of pry it out. Okay, so now I got one in there. I have a couple pick tools here that I like to use. So I'm going to like interchange these. And what you want to do is you want to try to get like at least 2 of them so that you can start prying it out. What I have found the most luck is this one and the one up here. Because again, this is the flat one. And once you have these 2, you can sort of push the switch out from the back. And once you get the switch a little bit out, which now you can see mine is a little bit out, then it's just a matter of using your picks to get this side out. But again, you don't want to do this that often because these plastic, it's the silver part that is very, I'm not going to use the term sensitive, but they're very stiff. And I honestly, the more often I do this, the more I feel like they're going to be prone to cracking. So only do this as is necessary. I am going to sort of sacrifice this in case something happens so that you guys can learn how to do this in case you ever need to. And you probably will need to if you ever have to replace your switches because new switches don't come with the silver plastic. All right, usually by the time you get the 3rd one, you can kind of just push until it finally pops out. But for perspective, I mean, you guys can see this side is bending pretty harshly. So out it came. Now we have this out. Now, just so you guys know, I'm not going to do it on this one because obviously I don't need to. But let's kind of finish deconstructing this. You have these 2, these switches. Again, this is if you really want to get in there and really deep clean these suckers. This one and this one that kind of moves. Let's start with this one. It rocks, meaning it's going to have 2 hinges on the top and the bottom. So if we look under here, you can see here is one hinge right here, this white piece, and here is the other hinge. So what I just do is I go to the bigger hinge on the bottom and I just kind of push it out while also pushing down with my pick. And I'll do this. You can do the same on the top, or sometimes you can just kind of pull it out. But there's your switch. Okay. And then we're going to do the same. The bottom here has, it kind of rocks in 4 directions. So you have a bunch. You have 1, 2, 3, 4. You see them all. So I'm just going to start with one of them and make my way around. I'm not sure how well this is going to go, but we're going to find out. Because this, with 4, it's probably going to be prone to wanting to snap itself back together. So this is probably going to be a test. Okay. And last but not least, this one has to come out through the middle. And the easiest way to do that is there are these 2 little white nut, I'll call them nubs again, on the sides. You're just going to push those in towards the white circle and push down. And out comes your switch. Okay, so you're going to do the same thing for this one. This one is actually a lot easier because this one rocks up and down, so it doesn't have the 4 on the bottom. It's just got 1 on this side and 1 on this side. You can see the nubs on the middle here, and on the top one, once again, it's a rocker, a small rocker, so you can see the piece there. Now, there is this cover for the light that you can also deconstruct by pushing out on, there's a tab over here that holds it in. And so if you just push on those 2 tabs to push them out, it will pop right out. And actually, I probably can do it while this thing is entirely all together. Yeah, so you can see it's, again, same concept. So that's it, guys. That is how you would kind of fully pull apart your 6th Gen Camaro steering wheel. Obviously, I'm going to be putting this guy all back together once I'm done with this video, but if you like it, I hope you stick around, and I'll catch you in the next one. See ya.